Hi everyone, in this video we will be going through what is inflation and what are the causes of inflation. To recap, inflation is the sustained rise in the general price level of goods and services. It is the rate at which price level has increased and can be computed using this formula. Now, let us pause to think. Suppose if the price of apple in Singapore has increased from $2 in 2014 to $2.50 in 2015, can this be considered as inflation? Can it be said that since price of apple has increased, it is inflation? Well, actually the answer is no. This is because for it to be considered as inflation, the general price level of goods must increase. In other words, in order to compute if the general price level of goods has increased, we have to take a look at the price level using a basket of goods and services. Different countries thus have different goods in that particular basket. Well, in Singapore, the basket of goods and services includes communication, transport, healthcare, clothes, accommodation, education and stationeries, food, and lastly, recreation and entertainment. With this, now let us take a look at some of the main causes of inflation. There are two causes of inflation, namely cost-push inflation and demand-pull inflation. Firstly, cost-push inflation is caused by an increase in cost of production and is not associated with any increase in aggregate demand. Some of the reasons that could lead to an increase in cost of production would be costs associated with raw materials like oil, fuel, steel, etc., wages, taxes, and price of imports. Now, suppose if wages increase. Since labor takes up a huge portion of production, as is an important factor input for production, an increase in wages will thus lead to an increase in cost of production, leading to cost-push inflation. Cost-push inflation can be illustrated by an upward shift of the AS curve. With an increase in cost of production, AS curve shifts upwards from AS0 to AS1. Assuming that AD remains the same, it will lead to an increase in price from P0 to P1 and output falls from NY0 to NY1. Secondly, we also have the demand pull inflation, which is caused by an increase in AD as the economy reaches full employment. As a result, when AD increases, it can be seen that the economy is overheating. Since AD consists of consumption, investment, government expenditure, and net exports, an increase in any of this component when economy is at full employment will lead to demand pull inflation. Demand pull inflation can be illustrated by a rightward shift of the AD curve. At full employment of NY1, economy is already operating at full capacity. As AD further increases from AD0 to AD1, total national output remains at NY1. But prices now increase from P0 to P1, reflecting a demand pull inflation. Now, let us take a look at the context of Singapore. What do you think is the main cause of inflation for Singapore? Well, in Singapore, our main cause is actually imported inflation. What do we mean by imported inflation? As we know, Singapore is a small and open economy with limited natural resources. As a result, we are very dependent on imports of necessity and raw materials for consumption and production. Hence, as prices of imported goods increase, cost of production increase, leading to imported inflation. One good example would be in 2008. Food prices in neighboring countries like Malaysia and Indonesia have increased. This also coincides with a sharp rise in oil prices. As a result, the increase in price for both food and oil imports have caused inflation rate of Singapore to increase to 6.6% in 2008, which was twice the rate in 2007. With this, let us end off with a thinking question in a real-world context. In the recent months, countries in the Eurozone have been experiencing deflation. Deflation is now back in Europe. From the graph, we have also seen that oil prices have fallen tremendously since 2014. With the fall in oil prices, can it be an explanation why European countries experienced deflation in 2015? Let us first analyze what would a fall in oil prices mean. A fall in oil prices would mean a fall in cost of production, as oil is a factor input for most production. However, it is unlikely that oil prices alone will lead to deflation. Instead, it is more likely to cause disinflation, which is falling inflation rate. Hence, in order to explain the cause of deflation in Europe, there must be some other factors combined with the fall in oil prices. Let us now take a look at these factors. Firstly, with a fall in oil prices, there will be reduced profitability for alternative energy sources. Hence, investments in alternative greener form of energy will fall. The economic recession in most European countries has also led to lower consumer confidence. This causes consumers to hold back their spending and consumption fall as well. There is also a reflection of weak global demand. With low economic growth globally, demand for exports is low. Net exports for European countries will also fall. This also coincides with the loss of export competitiveness due to emerging countries from Asia. With the rise of ASEAN countries, many countries are turning to purchase cheaper exports from Asia, resulting in a fall in demand for European exports. This once again led to a fall in net exports for European countries. All this seems to suggest that AD in Europe as a whole seems to be falling, which also leads to deflation. To end off in the next video, we will look at 3 of the following points. Firstly, we'll see why is high inflation undesirable. This will be followed by a real-life case study of hyperinflation, and lastly, the benefits of low inflation. Stay tuned to the next video. Thank you!